Welcome to our mess and our chaos.
Welcome to the pre-draft party here on Snow the Goalie. Joining us is one of the Flyers' top scouts, Mark Greig. Mark, thanks for being here. Absolutely. Get nice and close. That mic, you got to be real loud into that thing. Okay. I guess we want to start.
I also put a lot of pressure on you. Sorry about that in advance. Although I'd assume that at this point you guys have an idea how you feel about these players. Pretty fair assessment here on draft night.
We do. It's been weeks of preparation and evaluations and revisiting different scenarios. So we feel locked and loaded.
Now, if you could take the audience through, like, what is that like from when you guys first start your meetings? Obviously, you guys have been scouting all year, and then you start the meetings, several weeks ago. And then how does it start there to get down to where you are now on draft night?
Well, it's a bit of a process throughout the entire year. We kind of visit in November, start to talk about the players that are surfacing. There's a mid-season meeting that we gather in Florida for 4 or 5 days and really start to build a list, rounds 1 through 7. 3-quarter season mark, revisit thoughts again. And there's always moving pieces throughout the list. I mean, as you guys know, these are young kids. Some are taking steps at different times of the year. Some are plateauing, and some have all kinds of different dynamics that are taking place. But the final season, we meet for about 4 or 5 days prior to the combine. Then, of course, we do the combine and gather as much information as we can there, both from the physical standpoint and there's an interview that takes place there with the player himself over and above the interviews we've done ourselves. And, of course, we get into town here 4 or 5 days early and, again, start to revisit all the evaluations and start to dial into who's probably available at our picks, start to try to use foresight and so forth. So it is a long process, and there's moving pieces throughout. But one way or another, you get to a point where you feel that the list has really been dissected, and you're comfortable with it.
How many times do you guys do like your own mock? I don't want to say mock as far as like write it out, but like a mock draft in the room where you guys are playing out those scenarios?
I would say most of that type of stuff has taken place in the last 3 or 4 days. I mean, Danny also is getting different teams calling, talking about different trade scenarios. Some are of interest, some are not. And you're also watching around the league to see what other scenarios are unfolding. So the mock type stuff, I would say, is in the last 3 or 4 days. And we all kind of have our information that we put forward, and you try to build different scenarios that you feel are going to unfold.
Now, go ahead, Russ.
I don't want to put you in a weird spot here, but I am. When you see a trade go down, like the one that brought Trevor Zegras to Philadelphia, an interesting name, by the way. I wonder if he'll be available anywhere. Stay tuned. So he comes to town, plays center. Obviously, a lot of centers are viewed to be top picks. I mean, there should be at least one would assume by the time you guys pick at 6. There will be many. When you see a trade like that go down, does that change the calculus from your side? Like from the evaluation perspective, is it something where Danny and Jonesy and the like say, hey, maybe this opens up the possibilities? Like where do you land there?
When something like that unfolds, we take direction from upper management, Danny and the staff, as to, has it changed our approach and maybe what we're selecting? Having a center now, does it change the dynamics of, do we want to go to a winger now that we've acquired Zegras? So we would take all our direction from the upper management. Our list would not shift as far as who we believe the best player available. And sometimes these trades do that, and sometimes it's indifferent.
Now, in the question I was going to ask, I remember being in that prep room with you that one year that we filmed it, and you guys adjust the list a little bit, but you guys pretty much have an idea of where guys are going to go. At what point do you think would it be safe to say that this list was the order that you have them in was finalized this week? At what point do you think you guys had it, at least the top 6, knowing where you guys are picking at 6?
Yeah, unique scenario, like you said. When you're picking as high as 6, you're looking at 4 or 5, 6 different players realistically that should line up. The order may change a little bit, but you're pretty confident these players are going to go. I would say in the last 3 days, we've been pretty locked in. Oh, there's different scenarios that have been bantered about guys moving into that. Does that change the order, so forth? But I would say in the last 3 or 4 days, that dynamic's been in order. Picking 22 and 31, a unique year. Like as many years as I've been here, we've never had 3 first-round picks. So I would say we've been more diligent working through the list into a deeper pocket, just because of the 3 picks. So the last 3 or 4 days for me over the years I've been here probably been a little bit more intense than I've seen in the past. And, having those 3 picks, we got to be pretty diligent and invested.
It's no secret that Danny and this organization, since they took over in the front office, they have had an ability to get a lot of Russian players over here. I mean, Mishkov came over 2 years earlier than expected. Fedotov came over. Kolosov, who's Belarusian, played in the KHL, made his way over. Does that change the math at all for you guys when you're evaluating players and like where you think they would be best suited? Like, not every team is as willing to go after those players. Does it change anything for you guys in that evaluation process or when you're kind of building that board?
I would say it's opened up our mindset as to the opportunity to do so. I mean, there was years where we weren't going to go down that road. And as you mentioned, there's teams that aren't willing to go there. But with the pipeline that Danny and Jonesy have kind of built and the comfortability in acquiring them and having them come and, wanting to be a part of the Flyer organization, I would say we're more comfortable having those conversations maybe than ever.
Obviously, we talked about the top end of the list, and you talked a little bit about 22 and 31. And then obviously tomorrow you go from rounds 2 through 7. What is it like leading up to the pick that you're about to make? Like, is there some more last minute discussion in that war room? You guys kind of like saying, well, what do we do here? Like, we have a couple guys, et cetera, et cetera?
There's certainly discussion. The list won't change
right
at that point, but hey, it's an exciting time of year for our staff. This is the day that we work forward through the whole entire season. So as we're watching other teams make their picks and you're starting to connect the dots on why they're doing so, you're getting more excited about the pick yourself. And finally, when it unfolds, there's that moment of, okay, we've accomplished it. It's real now. And let's get moving on to the next pick at 22 and relive the feelings again.
And as a guy who's watched players all year, right? And you've seen them 10, 12 times each. When you have a guy that you've pushed hard for and that guy ends up getting picked, how does that feel for you personally, knowing that you were one of the driving forces in helping that player get selected?
Yeah, I would say in our industry, that's the reward or the juice that you feel in a long season's body of work. And you do feel more invested when maybe you and 2 or 3 on the staff that have pushed for a player that's finally before your eyes and you do select him. You kind of take part in his journey, and you're as interested in anybody from a day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year journey as he starts to develop and grow into the player that you hope you kind of projected. So it's a neat journey, and it's sometimes a roller coaster, as we all know. These things don't always play out the way you hope, but it's an investment.
I had a question about a player. And obviously this doesn't change anything, but a guy like Roger McQueen, there were these legitimate concerns about the herniated disc. I think is what the bulging disc is what he was diagnosed with. And then at the combine, he said, misdiagnosis, fracture. Seems like he thinks the medicals are good. I'm not going to ask you to speak on medicals. A lot of reasons why you can't do that. But when you look at a guy who has the kind of talent, the frame, all that, do you think that getting that kind of clean bill of health, like if you had to, I'm not asking you like where you think he's going to go and if you guys are interested, all that, how much variance do you think like an injury like that, just in theory to a player, could affect their status from your perspective? And,
like I find at the top of the board, those are always the toughest dynamics when a player's had an injury that surfaces at 3 or 4 different times. And the viewings have been so minimal that you are having trouble getting to a comfort point of, I know this is what he is. I feel this is where it can go. And you're trying to decide ceilings and floors of his talent. For me, probably the most trickiest part of the draft. But when you're into the year prior and you're into a projected top 10 pick, I feel like there's a slide factor of 5 to 6 spots, just because there's some teams that are comfortable going down that road with a back injury. Of course, they get all the information they can medically. And then there's some that feel it's just not a play they want to make. So there can be a little pocket where they shift around in spots, but at the end of the day, I don't find it's too far if, in fact, you feel they're healthy and going to go forward.
And I won't ask you for a name, but we always talk about, you see pundits put out their mocks. They put out their rankings. You do this. You do the scouting. You have an idea of how you view it, how the organization views it. How often do you see somebody's mock and go, what the hell are you looking at?
I would say daily. A couple of reasons. There's so many mocks now,
Right.
which is really cool to see that everybody's excited about the draft and kind of putting together their own thoughts. I just find sometimes that, we put in so much work and on a day-to-day basis that when we see something that seems so out of place, it gets your attention, and you kind of ask yourself, I wonder how they would surface at that. And hey, we're not right all the time either, but like I say, the top 5 or 6 names, 7, it's going to unfold. It's the matter of the order. So when a name pops in there that's so random, it's a notable for you.
Okay. I was just think it's an interesting thing because we always have those like debates among like we'll say we haven't watched a lot of film on these guys like leading up to the draft. We'll cram a little bit, but it's not like the same thing as scouting throughout the year. Yeah. And you see people who go out and they're like, if the Flyers take this player, there's one right now that it seems like Flyers Twitter, which you should not listen to. They are like anybody but this guy. And I'm like, well, you haven't watched him, right? And maybe he ends up being one of the better players in the draft. Yeah. You just don't know. So you said that sometimes, maybe daily, you're like, the hell are you thinking?
Go ahead.
When it all comes out in the wash, how often would you say, on the whole, either your record, the group's record, when you look back on it, you go, all right, that one guy that the pundit said was going to be great that ended up being a bust, that you can go, oh, no, we knew he was going to be a bust?
I would say it's favorable percentages.
Okay.
I mean, the body of work and the investment and the hours that you put in, the preparation, like I say, it's not a perfect science, but percentages favor that our journey throughout the whole year is going to be probably more accurate than not.
Last question, because I know you got to get back to the war room.
Kind of an important night, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of an important night. When you are scouting players, what is something that maybe you look for that isn't quite, everything that everybody's watching for in a player, but that's something that you look for to say, that's something that I like in a player just in general that's going to make him a better chance of being a good pro in the NHL?
Every scout kind of has their own, sweet spot or something that draws them in, and it can change from scout to scout. And I always felt that that's what makes a good staff, is everybody has their own kind of piece that they draw into. For me, it's character, how the player carries himself, maybe between the whistles, on the bench, his interaction with teammates, his interaction with coaches, any interviews that you can do, and you can really get a sense of who he is as a person. For me, it's a draw. I mean, we like players to have good body language. We like them to show good synergy with their teammates, treat refs with respect when they can, but yet be competitive. So for me, it's always been a bit of a draw, and I've worked with these guys long enough. We have guys that it's all about their compete level. That's kind of like the determining factor when they get their first viewings that draws them to them. So to answer your question, from scout to scout, I think it moves around. But for me, I get drawn to the character and the person, and it's a neat piece for me that I feel it's kind of served me well.
Awesome. Mark Greig, thank you so much for stopping by on Snow the Goalie. Loved having you. Go into that draft room, have a blast tonight and tomorrow, and reap all the rewards, because it's a good time for you guys.
We will. Appreciate it.